All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiment. Another week of the deck tech. This week, we're talking something a little different. We're talking about Nethroi, Apex of Death. So this was a commander out of Ikoria. And so it's an Abzan colored commander, 2 white, black, green for a 5/5 Death Touch lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, return a number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it has a mutate cost for 4 and then a white-green hybrid and then black and black. Now, if you didn't play during Ikoria, you could mutate one of these creatures that had mutate on it onto another non-human creature, and then you would get a whole series of effects. And the more you mutated onto them, the more effects you could get. And Nethroi leads itself to a particular type of graveyard synergy related deck that looks very suspiciously like a Dredge deck. So we'll talk you through what I have here in front of me, which is a very budget friendly. This is under $200 for this, and it could be way less than that if you really wanted to. About $200 for this deck that would get you playing. Probably suited for a bracket 2 or maybe a bracket 3 table, but let's walk ourselves through it. So, the first piece with Nethroi is that you are going to find that 5 mana, you're not wanting to cast this for 5 mana. This is really a 7 mana commander, and it takes some setup on the board. The board needs to have non-human creatures on it that you can mutate Nethroi onto. And you don't necessarily care if you have a lot of other mutators in the deck, because of the fact that in order to get max value, it can be tricky to get 10 power worth of creatures in your graveyard unless you're being very aggressive with your milling. So the first thing you're going to find, you're going to need a lot of mana, because you may find that you go to mutate Nethroi and then it dies quite promptly, or you maybe want it to die promptly and you have to remutate it onto something else, which means you're paying the commander tax for it. So let's talk about all the ways we're going to get all this mana to cast these things. So we have a Kadama's Reach, and we have a Cultivate. 2 cards that do exactly the same thing. Find 2 lands, put 1 into play, put 1 in your hand. Solemn Simulacrum, so 4 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get to go find a basic and put it into play tapped. And when it dies, you get to cover a card. So this one's really good for this deck, because you're going to want to have your things die and to have them brought back with Nethroi, meaning you're going to get the ETB again. Rampant Growth is a staple for me. So is Sakura Tribe Elder. All right. We have a Sol Ring. Sol Ring is excellent. We have a Llanowar Elves. We have an Avacyn's Pilgrim. And we have an Elves of Deep Shadow. So now you have a 1 mana elf for all 3 colors that you can cast. Super good. We have a Skull Prophet. So black and a green. It can tap for a black or a green, and it taps to put 2 cards in your graveyard. This putting things in your graveyard thing becomes really, really powerful with Nethroi to make good use of that mutate ability. We have a Fabro Elder. So because this is a 3-color deck, this is going to routinely be able to tap for 3. Pretty handy. We have an Ancient Cornucopia. So this is going to help you gain a little bit of life, because Ancient Cornucopia says 2 and a green. Whenever you cast a spell that's 1 or more colors, you may gain 1 life for each of that spell's colors. This only once each turn, and tap to add 1 mana of any colors. So 3 mana rock, that's going to get you some extra life. And then we have a Crypt to Agadim. Normally I keep this in the mana base, but we're going to talk about it here today because this is the deck that's going to probably utilize it the best of anything I've got. So, enters the battlefield taps for a black, but you can pay 2 and a tap, and you add black to your mana pool for each black creature card in your graveyard. Well, because many of the cards you have are gold and touch black, you're going to have a lot of ways to make a bunch of mana with this. Now, it's not a surefire bet, and at times it does nombo with Nethroi. So right after you've mutated Nethroi and you've emptied your graveyard of all the things, you're not going to be able to get the burst of mana from Crypt of Agadim. However, it still taps for a black, which makes it better than many. All right, let's talk about how we're stocking our graveyard, because stocking our graveyard is vital in this list. So first one, we have the Dakmor Salvage. So Dakmor Salvage is interesting because you don't really want to put this into play. So this one is comes into play taps for a black, and has Dredge too. So Dredge is a replacement effect that you may have encountered, that instead of drawing a card, you can choose to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard and then return this from your graveyard to your hand. In a deck where you're looking to find ways to put things into your graveyard, things that dredge for free are really, really interesting. So Dakmor Salvage is in this list, and I don't really even care if I ever put it into play. I would much rather dredge with it. So Dredge, we have a Satyr Wayfinder. Satyr Wayfinder, 1 and a green for a 1/1. Satyr. Whenever Satyr Wayfinder enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. Super good. We also have Town Greeter, which is almost the exact same card, but this is now from Final Fantasy. When this creature enters mill 4, you may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield. If you put a town card for your hand this way, you gain 2 life. I'm not playing any towns, so those 2 cards essentially function exactly the same. And then with Circle of Land Druid, which is very similar as well, 1 and a green, enters the battlefield mill 4, but you gotta wait till it dies. When it dies, you can return a land card from your graveyard to your hand. All right, then we have Cemetery Tapping, which is a very useful effect. So 2 and a black for an enchantment, hideaway 5. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 3 cards. Then if there are 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So you're going to get to 20 cards very promptly with this, and Cemetery Tampering is going to very quickly be turned on, and you're going to get whatever goodie you stashed away. We have a Grizzly Salvage, so 1 and a green. I reveal the top 5 cards. You put a creature card or land card from among them into your hand. Put the rest in your graveyard. I like this because it's instant speed, so I can do this on my end step on my opponent's end step prior to me drawing. I really like it for that. Then we have a Witherbloom Apprentice. Sorry, Witherbloom Command. Apprentice is in this here too, but black, green, and the sorcery. Choose 2. Target player mills 3 cards. Then you return a land card from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. You'd be surprised how often that ability turns up. Target creature gets -3/-1 until end of turn. Perfect for killing mana dorks. Or target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. All the modes are relevant. It's a little clunky at sorcery speed, but it's a useful card. And then we have the big daddy of them all. We have the Hermit Druid. 1 and a green for a 1/1. Human Druid, green and tap. Reveal cards at the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand, and all other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. So if you don't hit basic lands, you're going to be able to mill over a ton of things, and turning Nethroi on into an awesome target. Okay? So we've got lots of good things in our graveyard. Putting things in our graveyard. What are we putting in our graveyard specifically? Well, we're putting things like Sir Conrad. We'd love to get that back. Sir Conrad cares that things go to your graveyard and come back from your graveyard. So that's pretty good. Pelucranos Unchained. That's just a big old thumper, and it can keep coming back and coming back and coming back. Bellados Witherbloom. Sometimes you just want more mana, and Bellados, you got to pay 10 life, but sometimes you don't care. This is just a big old useful dragon. Sylvan Safekeeper allows you to keep your things. That's pretty good too. The Necrobloom is perfect in this deck. So Necrobloom is 1 white, black, green for a 2/7 legendary creature plant. It has landfall. Whenever a land comes onto the battlefield under your control, create a 0/1 green plant creature token. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. Land cards in your graveyard have Dredge 2. So now all your lands that you've put into your graveyard because you've been milling or other things now have Dredge, and you can keep the drilling. We have a Grey Merchant of Asphodel because that's just a really good win condition. We have a Blood Artist because if we want to sack everything and bring everything back a few times, then Blood Artist is useful. Loot Exuberant Explorer with extra lands. Making extra land drops is good. This is a nod towards the Necrobloom without going too crazy. We have Gliss of the Sunslayer, just a very useful Golgari colored value piece. Massacre Worm, 3 black, 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 black for a 6/5 Phyrexian Worm. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life, making it very, very efficient. killing a bunch of small things, clearing up token tables without no trouble. And then Skullbriar. Skullbriar, a black and a green with haste. Whenever Skullbriar, the walking grave, deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Counters remain on Skullbriar as it moves to any zone other than the player's hand or library. So if this were to die, it keeps the counters on it. And so when Nethroi brings it back, inevitably, you're going to be able to bring this card back from your graveyard, back into play, complete with all the counters. All right, so those are some of the really good targets. There's other things that we want to talk about here too. We have some mutators. So Nethroi mutates, but these other two cards also have mutate, and so they can trigger Nethroi a second time. If I had a few more, I would, a Boneyard Lurker or a few other things. I would do a couple more just to give myself a little more options, but these two are very strong. So Chittering Harvester. 5 and a black for a 4/6. It has mutate for 4 and a black. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So Edict effect is nice. Or we have Cavern Whisperer, 4 and a black for a 4/4 with menace. Mutates for 3 and a black. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent discards a card. So destroy their creatures, destroy their cards. And in the process, you mutate this with Nethroi, you're going to be able to go and get all those creatures out of your yard. Let's talk about other ways we're going to get things out of our yard with just Nethroi. Well, we have a Skullwinder. We have an Unburial Rites. We have a Savine's Reclamation. We have a 6. We have a Soul Exchange. And we have an Honest Retstein. All of these, in one way or another, get things back out of our graveyard and put them back into our hand or into play in some instances. 6 is probably the one that's a standout here. Because 6, once you've gone and dredge for all this land and you put the Dakmor Salvage in your land, in your hand, you can use this ability on 6 on your turn. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace, meaning you can pay the mana cost and discard a land, which is kind of okay in this deck, and you're going to be able to go and cast those spells again. But they got to be permanent. So those are all good, useful cards, very, very handy. We also have an Eerie Ultimatum that's going to bring them all back in a hurry. When they all start coming back, Insidious Roots means I'm going to pick up plant tokens, put counters on them, and just generally the plants can be tapped to add extra mana. Haunted Crossroads is an interesting one. It's an old one from Mercadian Masks. 2 and a black is an enchantment. Black, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So if you've been board wiped or your key piece is dead, you can do this at your end of turn before you draw to go and put that creature from your graveyard back on top of your library, meaning you get to draw it again. All right? And then sometimes you just want them to get the creatures to go there of their own accord. You have a sacrifice out like Bartolomeo del Presidio, 2 and a 1, 2/1s for a black and a white. Sacrifice another creature or artifact. Put a +1/+1 counter on Bartolomeo del Presidio. All right, so we also have a couple of Grists. So these are other valuable pieces. So Grist, the Hunger Tide, is useful because in any other space than on board, it is also a creature. So you can mill it, you can pick it up with things that say pick up a creature. For most cases, it's a creature. Okay, Grist, the Voracious Larva, says that whenever Grist Voracious Larva or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it entered from your graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, you may pay green. If you do exile Grist, then return it to the battlefield transformed. With Nethroi bringing things back from my graveyard all the time, this Grist is going to flip, and you're going to get another powerful planeswalker on the battlefield. Okay, let's talk about card draw, because card draw is super key in this list. All right, so the first big one is Soul of the Harvest. So 4 green for a 6/6 elemental trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So if I have a bunch of creatures that can leave the graveyard, come into play, and the Soul will see them and trigger, and I'll draw 2, 3, 4 cards thanks to Nethroi returning all those creatures to the battlefield. Okay? Super good card. Keeps your hand full, particularly if you're in heavy green decks. All right. Then we have Harmonize. Harmonize is a classic of Commander games. If you're in green, you're familiar with Harmonize. 2 green, draw 3 cards. Corrupted Conscience. Corrupted Conviction. Sorry, single black, instant speed. As initial cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. This you'll probably do in response to something like a board wipe or something, but sometimes you have a creature you want dead. So the Circle of Land Druid is the one that I can think of regularly. I'm prepared to sacrifice in order to trigger it to get a land back, put it into my hand. Super useful card. This is make sure your thing dies, and then you get the trigger off to draw the cards. All right. Then we have a Pitiless Carnage. So this is 3 and a black for a sorcery. Sacrifice any number of permanents you control, then draw that many cards. You can sack your lands, you can sack your creatures, you can sack your artifacts, you can sack whatever you need to draw cards. God Eternal Bond 2 has a similar piece of text on it. All right. This being a sorcery is kind of neat, and I like the fact that it's plot on it, meaning I can set it aside early and then play it later once my board is developed enough to be able to use it. Next, we have some interesting cards. So we've got Life from the Loam, and 4 lands. All right. So each of these lands, so Polluted Mire, Tranquil Thicket, Slippery Karst, and Desert of the Glorified, have a cycling cost on them. So I can cycle them for cards, and then use Life from the Loam to return them to my hand. Then I can return Life to the Loam by dredging 3. I can return it to my hand. And then I can have access to my 3 lands again that I'm going to cycle, so that you can keep drawing through your deck. And it's really hard to stifle a cycle trigger. So it's just a really efficient way to you can keep drawing cards. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong, but with these 4 lands in hand, you're not really looking to play them so much as you're looking to just keep cycling them to draw cards with Life from the Loam. Here's the one big piece, the big ticket item I put in this list because I have a Sylvan Library. So this one is you may draw 2 extra cards during your draw phase. If you do so, put 2 of the cards drawn this way back on top of your library in any order, or pay 4 life per card and not replaced. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. So instead of drawing 1, you look at 3, and you can decide if you're going to pay 8 life to keep them and put them in your hand. If you're in green, you recognize that this sometimes is an effect you're looking for. I'm trying it out in this list. Now, it's a little bit pricey. It's almost $40. I ended up getting it for a good price from another player. So it's something I'm looking to try out, but it definitely is something that can be switched out for something different. Like a Phyrexian Arena would do the same trick, and you pay 1 life and 3 mana instead of 4. But anyway, 3. So let's talk about how we're not going to die. All right, we're not going to die like this. We have a Touch the Spirit Realm. Okay, so sometimes you blink your thing or you exile their thing. It's handy. Tear Asunder, flexible, catch-all, removal. You kill it all. Murderous Cut. You can exile extra lands from your graveyard to pay the delve cost on it. Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner. These are Editor-style effects attached to creatures that you're happy to have die and then come back later when you mutate with Nethroi. Mortality Spear. Again, pretty useful catch-all removal. Airship Crash. This is one I got from Final Fantasy. I like it because it destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Okay, so maybe they're dragon, maybe they're enchantment, their lock piece or whatever they're doing. Maybe you're killing their, who knows, whatever, something good. But it also has cycle 2, and so that makes it appealing, worth trying it. We have a Maelstrom Pulse. So 2 black-green, destroy target non-land permanent, and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent. So if you're killing token decks, that's a pretty handy way to do it. Abrupt Decay. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. It can't be countered. We have a Comeback Wrong. So during your destroy target creature, if a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice at the beginning of your next end step. This is neat because you can target your opponent's commander, make them kill it, or watch it die, and then get it for the rest of the turn. Then we have a Colony Ambush, which also doubles as an MDFC, and then we have a Culling Ritual. So you're going to, anybody who's got treasures or clues or who knows, going to die, and you're going to get good value out of that. Okay? Now, how do we win the game? Well, there's the obvious, make a bunch of creatures, and you play Grey Merchant of Asphodel or Sir Conrad. those are probably the two creature methods that you want. Maybe the Blood Artist gets you there. You have a bunch of different tools and lines of attack to get there. Sometimes you're just going to be able to make things and overwhelm your opponents with stuff. The other way is with these two cards. So if you need to secure a win, let's say you've been playing for a long time, you're not really sure what to do. With Weatherboom Apprentice and Chain of Smog is a pretty typical way to get a win. I put it in here as an emergency. The idea being that if you find yourself a Chain of Smog, you just hold it and sandbag it in your hand for a bunch of turns until such time as you reveal the Weatherboom Apprentice and you can get it back onto the battlefield. Once you have it on the battlefield, it isn't very much mana, and you can cast your Chain of Smog and then drain the opponent, the entire table, for their life totals. So it's in the deck as an emergency break glass in case of emergency, but not generally the way that this deck wants to win. It would rather win through something like a Great Merchant of Asphodel line or Sir Conrad. All right. And then the mana base down here is pretty easy, quite a number of basics. Probably not ideal if I want to utilize Hermit Druid in a serious fashion, but you find you need the basics because you're pulling them out and you're looking to keep your deck reasonably affordable, right? So, are there upgrades to be made for this deck? Absolutely. Right now, this deck comes in around $200, which I think is a pretty good spot for most decks at, bracket 2, maybe to bracket 3. I sort of figured bracket 3 ends up being a little bit more expensive because you have access to some of those game changers. But this is a deck that is pretty friendly on the budget angle of things, which makes it appealing to lots of players. All right, that's the plan. Nethroi, Apex of Death. All right. If you liked what you saw, you want to check out the deck list, it is down below in the notes. Feel free to check it out. Let me know. You can find all our deck lists there on our Moxfield account, and you can spot them all there. If you like what you hear, you can go and check out the link in the notes to go hear our weekly podcast. And of course, like and subscribe, leave a comment, anything to help us out, get the algorithm to pick us up and to share us with more people. We'd love to get out there. We made 50 followers before the 1st of July, which is amazing. I never thought we'd get there, but we made it. And so next goal is trying to get to 100. And we're trying to get to 100 by Labor Day. I think that's a pretty realistic thing. We just got to stay on it, have you guys help spread the word that here at the Epic Experiment, we are talking Commander and trying to make it more affordable for you to play with your friends. All right, thanks everybody. Take care. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiment signing off. Have a good one. Catch you later.